Welcome back. I think we can all agree that our doctors and other healthcare workers have gone above and beyond as we continue to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. Astonishingly, it's being reported that some medical staff have not yet been paid their salaries for January. The SA Medical Association trade union has received dozens of complaints of non-payment in Gauteng. Let's find out whether the issue has been resolved. I'm joined now by Samatu's Nkateko, Mnisi. Nkateko, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So it's quite surprising that this has happened. How bad is the situation?
Thank you for having me here today. For those that aren't aware, Samatu is the South African trade union, South African Medical Association trade union, which represents medical doctors employed in the public sector. So this is not the first time this happens, but what worries us is that the province that constantly has the same problem of non-payment is Gauteng province. We do have a few other complaints from KZN and other provinces, but the majority of it is Gauteng province. And the doctors that have been most affected out of all the cohorts are junior doctors. So those are interns who are fresh out of medical school, as well as community service doctors and post-comserve medical officers as well. Each day the complaints keep on piling. We've contacted and spoken to senior officials in Gauteng, the Premier, the Office of the HOD, as well as the DDG, but unfortunately, they've gotten back to us, but without any concrete answers or responses, telling us that they're not sure when this will be solved. And this is quite concerning at this particular time when we have this pandemic and a shortage of health staff. And we find ourselves with these doctors who have been tirelessly going to working 40 hours a week and more than 80 hours of overtime each month in order to ensure that our country is served well. But unfortunately here we find ourselves with them being paid, some of them even nothing, zero, not even a partial payment of their salaries, which means each day they must still somehow find themselves going to work without any money or reserves to make sure they have food to eat, a roof over their head, or even transport to get to work, which at this moment in time. But some other problem that I'd also like to highlight is that we also have a few of our members that have been complaining, who have been newly employed under the COVID post. The posts were meant to be for 1 year, but unfortunately they've only been guaranteed employment for 3 months in Gauteng. So this is also one of the concerns we really think the Department of Health in Gauteng needs to address as soon as possible. Because us as a union also can't encourage our members to go without a continued unpayment of the particular level.
So let's talk about the numbers so we know how widespread this is. Can you tell us just an estimate as to how many complaints you've received about medical healthcare professionals not getting their salaries in January?
We've gotten around 100, nationwide, but more than 50% of that, the large bulk, is definitely from Gauteng, with about 50 interns and 20 ComServe doctors in an estimation in particular. So you
have engaged with authorities, you say. Have they given a reason as to why there hasn't been payment?
We haven't received a reason yet. We've just been told that they are aware and they will deal with it, but they're unable to commit to when this will be solved or who in particular will be taking responsibility of solving it.
Yeah, that's quite worrying, isn't it? And is it just for January or previous months as well?
It's just for January, but what concerns us is each year Gauteng tends to have this particular problem. And more so it's concerning at this particular moment in time when we have this COVID pandemic. We need to make sure we have as many health staff in the front lines as possible.
Yeah.
So talk about quality healthcare for our nation.
Sorry, so talk to us about the difficulties of these healthcare professionals working these long hours every day, knowing that they're not getting paid and then going home possibly to no food.
Some of them are really struggling to get to work, and each day the complaints just keep on piling and piling. See, when I saw these were the numbers that I heard, but I still hear that in the office there are more and more complaints piling up. People are highly frustrated, especially because these are junior doctors with very little reserve. The ones that come directly from medical school, they don't even have anything to go by. And the problem is some of them are in debt at the moment because they had to get some level of debt in order to ensure they can make it to work in the first month of the year.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are getting disheartened and possibly thinking of not going to work any longer.
Have you tried reaching out to national government or the National Health Department for intervention on this?
We haven't yet, as we had just contacted the particular provinces involved because it wasn't involving anyone, and we're giving them a time period in order to respond formally. But now we're escalating it, and our office is currently dealing with it. We've also released a statement formally as of earlier today. So we will be engaging with national level, but we're just starting off with the provinces involved.
And while I have you here, can we sidetrack a bit and can I ask you about the fight against COVID-19? I mean, obviously our numbers have dropped significantly in the past couple of weeks, which is why regulations have been eased. But how are things in hospitals?
Here's the thing, we're dealing with two pandemics in particular. It's the COVID one that we all see, but also on the other side, we also have mental illnesses that is really affecting all of our nation. We've had to change the way we live. And even the way we work and our working circumstances have really changed. So we often find ourselves in a different situation where, number one, the numbers may be going down, but the toll of the COVID virus has really affected us in terms of our mental health. A lot of health professionals are fatigued because they've had to take on a lot more hours and a lot more work. And unfortunately, we've also lost a lot of healthcare workers to COVID-19, which is quite saddening as well.
And what about vaccine hesitancy and the way government's rolling out this vaccine plan? Are you satisfied with that? Are you dealing with it as a union as well when it comes to healthcare professionals who are hesitant to actually get the vaccine?
Okay, so firstly, last year when we found out that the vaccines had been approved by and had finished the clinical trials, we did call on government to please ensure with as much exuberance and efficiently as possible to get some vaccines to South Africa and to also consider giving the health workers first, particularly those on the front line. So the minister did address that issue with a speedily and efficient manner by contacting and by addressing us all as a nation and coming up with a vaccine rollout plan and having a committee in place. Unfortunately, it's a lot slower than we thought it would be. And with the new mutations, we're worried that the vaccine obviously is not as efficient as possible or as previously tested, as we can see with the current study released by those in Wits University. We are glad that obviously before administrating it in South Africa, they need to ensure that the South African Health Profession, Products Regulation Authority agrees with it and obviously gives it a go-ahead, which we're glad government is going through that procedure. But we also want to highlight that we want to ensure that the vaccines that we're given are efficient and also don't break the cold chain, because, the vaccine needs to stay within a particular temperature hold. Those are the things that we want to highlight and are worried about. And we need to ensure, that this is as efficient as possible. And unfortunately, the delay is worrying us. But we do want to ensure that the product we get is as effective as possible. Also, and hopefully for the new mutation as well.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. That is Samatu's Nkateko Mnisi.